in Guatemala, etc., in other areas, more evidence is actually there that gives the old history than it is been exposed up here. That's the truth. You just need to recognize it. It's all around you. Re-embrace it in the proper concept, morally and ethically, though, outside of the fake political paradigms that have been promoted. And you'll also understand why the hybrid Europeans have been controlledly misrepresenting the OAS, or the Organization of the American States, and also why they've been misrepresenting their private corporation as America the country, when you know and the world knows that America is the continent from the northern hemisphere of Midgard to the central equator to the southern hemisphere of Midgard, comprising America, of whom you are. And America is a dialectical adjustment of Al-Moroccan. You're already a Moor. You can't become it. You already are. Now you must know the distinction between the Aboriginal people, distinguished from the hybrid European Germanic tribes who have been conquering us under the guise of the Spanish Inquisition, the Roman Inquisition, and the colonial operations from England under the fake dynamics of the so-called Columbus era, which is not a man, but an era of political operations.
Yeah. Speaking of Columbus not being a man, I mean, we were listening to Dane Calloway's his latest
Many
film,
props to Dane.
Yeah, regarding the fictionalization of the creation of the story of Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner, which is, at first glance or thought, you might go, oh, that has to be true, because there's all of this information and all of this documentation out there of and even, I've looked at something and they were the places where they say they were, where she was. It's right here in Wilmington, right on, with the
Baltimore area,
and the different, so places, Philly and stuff like that. But when we realize how much of a theater that we have been subjected to, we've been played almost
still hiding the history.
Everything that we thought it just happened when they did the War of the Worlds. It has been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years before that. And so it makes sense that creation would happen, of this fictionalization of the revolt, the rebellion, and the Underground Railroad and all these things, because it facilitated I guess what eventually became the what they call expatriation of our people to West Africa from here.
Yeah. Oh, even when you read the congressional records about Senator Balboa and the creation of Liberia in order to support the reconstructed history, to make the people think they came from the east side, while we did is before the great earthquake. Point. In order for them to steal the land, which is problematic, which is also why they call the capital of Liberia Monrovia. Yeah, you need to understand all those dynamics, all those choices.
They became what's called immigrants.
North America is Northwest Africa.
Right.
Central America, Central, Old Mexum, Old Mech, and you'll see Dane recognizes that he's Old Mech. Old Mexum. We know that, but it's no big secret. It's sort of like people, the truth, and I comprehend that it does. It makes people uncomfortable because they don't want to accept that they've been had. Because we like to refer to ourselves as being insightfully spiritual. And we've been played. Get over it. Remove your ego. Start recognizing you've been conquered. Honor your mothers and fathers for real. And start getting back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers. And understand that you're heirs of Midgard. And Midgard is the name of this particular earth. This particular firmament is Midgard. Get over it. You've just been contaminated. And you've been busy worshiping idol gods, and you've been played, and you've been robbed. Over it. We can get out of it. You know, respect your higher self. Know of your higher self, and know of your lower self, and seek the higher planes of light. They've always been available to you. You've been rejecting them. And that's the division, Dr. Naila. People really not willing to accept that our concepts have been wrong. Mm-hmm. The fact of this continued failure in our communities is your proof that we haven't had the truth. Because we certainly hadn't been free. With all this worship we've been doing all over the place, acting like fools on our own land, don't even know that we're on our own land. And then mocking us at every turn, including the Mummer's Parade in Philadelphia, city of brotherly love.
And they've added ancestrally affection.
Yeah, including the capacity of them in the late 1800s to transfer the legitimate Capitolium under treaty and constitution from the territories that you know as Shakamoxum to an area of man, and of man, 10 square miles at the 7 hills that Polk gave to them to establish a throne for the Roman goddess Columbia, and have been ruling the world with war from the 7 hills of Rome, which you know is Washington District of Columbia. Don't pretend y'all don't know that.
There was a question, and I've seen it a couple of times, but the question, it's just come up a few times about whether or not we should be signing or writing in lowercase or
the capital principle is really the grammatical deliberate indication of unum sanctum ownership by putting in the written form the living in all capital letters, which is known as the man of straw, or the straw man, etc. Which is why, as an example, if you look in an unabridged dictionary and you look at, as an example, let me show you, say, more, as an example.
I think what they're asking, though, just for clarification, whether it should be all lowercase.
Yeah. Listen. The real deal is understand what its function is.
Okay.
You understand? The function is a claim of a dead estate. You know, you must know what its function is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you agree to it or don't challenge it, if you get the point,
mm-hmm.
that's an implied acceptance of abandonment of a state. And of course, because they are vampires, recessive, that they are claiming it, and therefore claiming it for own, etc. That is its function of the non-negir. And of course, you would not write your appellation in all capital letters, because that would be an agreement that you are dead and they're claiming your estate. And this is also why they reclaim the estate under what you would call admiralty or maritime law, or law of the seas or piracies, and the privateering of the foot soldiers for Rome, i.e., which would be the barristers, accredited registry of Fleet Street, England, of the Circle Church and the Chancery, and why all claimed estates are delegated in what you call ecclesiastical and chancery court of England. This is why the chancery operators of the bar operate all judicial platforms in the West, or what you call the judicial platform via Fleet Street, England. And this is again why they transferred the Capitolium to Washington, D.C. And of course, this is all of the estates, marriage certificates, and birth certificates. And most people just talk about the birth certificates. They don't talk about the marriage certificates, where they claim ownership of the womb and claim that the mothers, which is the gateway from heaven to earth of all forms of life, that she is an informer and transfers her offspring, her seed, to Rome as a sacrifice, and thus you are declared dead, and thus the straw or the legal fiction that they create that is not you, and then attach to it an estate, and then claim that all labor, all future hereditaments, corporal and incorporeal, from the dead is transferred to the popes of Rome and the bishopric of Rome, and thus symbolically they have snuffed the life or the oxygen or the Christ or the monad or the crown that energizes the nuclear monad light of the pineal gland in the head. And thus, even with the masking that they're doing now, is to reduce the oxygen flow, to slow down fifth dimensional ascension that's happening. No matter what guise they put it on, that's what that's really about, to snuff the light of Christ, etc. The straw is the instrumentality or the bottomry instrument created by the bishoprics of Rome and executed by the members of the Circle Church and Chancery, which you know as the Bar Association, which are told of in the Bible and the Septuaginta as the Sadducees and the Pharisees, who have been robbing you and stealing the widow's pennies, who have been falsely representing you, denying your capacity through miseducation to present yourself, and they write it in all capital letters, which means the dead, etc. However, and this is to be understood or comprehended, it does not mean necessarily that in proper grammatication that the beginning of a projection of knowledge is given the capital or the emphasis of the first capital letter and then the small case, but it means all case capital. This is why all transference of contract where they're doing business or claiming right of trade, they will always put the appellation not as an appellation, but as a name, which means a corpse or corporation, and they will put the name all capital letters. And so that is the argument in its absolute valid point of non-capitalization in order that you do not agree to be dead.
But if you initial cap and lowercase, that's fine.
That's not wrong.
That's not wrong. That's
all caps is what represents the dead.
right.
So capitis nolo actually means don't put all caps. That's what it means. Because it represents the dead corporation by which the vampires extract the estate of the living. Thus, the ritual that they often use of eating a cracker as the body of Christ and then drinking wine as the blood, because they are cannibals and they are symbolically devouring Christ or your capacity to activate the pineal gland.
And they had the so-called church actually participating in their ritual unknowingly.
Well, the church is that. See,
well, I said the so-called. I'm saying the so-called because it's not. I'm talking about people. Communion would be each time people would do communion, you're acting out their ritual. You're keeping the vibration and the energy of their ritual.
It's important, and this is back to what's important, because it's important to recognize that they took over the church and contaminated it. They are not really the church.
Right.
They are imposters. Because the church actually means the astrological circle or the zodiac. It is the stars of the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what they do is that they take that which is already existing and contaminate it. This is again why they sacrifice little children under the guise of there is, for those of you who are out there right now, do a little current research and you'll find that certain so-called U.S. government agencies have been knowingly ordering for years baby parts of aborted babies. And don't think that Roe versus Wade was put in place for them to care about women. They needed this source for both themselves, for organs, and for food, your offspring, including the stem of the brain that connects the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, and the superconscious mind operations, but in its organic form, deals with the cranial, the heart, and the stomach for regeneration purposes. Don't you ever think it's for other than that or ever was.
I got an intuitive download that not only the parts that we know of that they also take the
DNA.
the so-called but the so-called fibroid tumors, because those are a lot of times you'll find the fetus that was in that fibroid. Those fibroids are babies that didn't completely develop, and they're also using them in their solutions. When they put everything together,
and for the makeup
and the makeup,
food,
yep,
makeup for so-called the hybrid wealthy women.
Fibroid is another surgery harvesting.
Yeah, they use it also for salves as because remember, and this is particular the target, although it's many children, even some of their own, but mainly for as an example, Haiti, when they had this thing going on in Haiti, and they were so-called helping the children. Well, no, they were using them because they need the melanin in their brain stem. Also, because as the Earth went through the Futon belt, the sun is more effectively, by default, creating cancers for what you would call mutants who are operating on Earth, whose physicality doesn't exactly harmonize with what might be called the indigo or indigenous people, real heirs of the earth. And the sun is a purifier, so the sun is starting to kill off mutants. So as a protective sunscreen, they need your babies to make into solution, and don't think that that's far-fetched, because it's absolutely the truth. And they've been eating them too. Let's get over that. Aside from other things that they've been doing to them, including drawing their essence, and you might call it plasma. For real. So we have some uncomfortable things that are going to open up as far as revelation, that's going to prove to you that some of these beings are not your friends that have been governing you, that you've been wrongfully referring to wrongfully as quote unquote your government. Another reason why we're doing the super.
In other words, your controllers.
Yes, they've conquered you. However, the superconscious mind starts breaking the bubble. That's why they don't want you to go there. Like we were talking about earlier, Dr. Naila, how we get there. Don't assume that we're just here because we're here in this condition, and understand that it is artificial constrictions that have been put in place, including old technology, advanced technology, to suppress us in our development. And we just have lost knowledge of the tech by which to break through. However, fifth dimensional energy that's brought in by Uranus, Jupiter, and Saturn line up, and Saturn and Uranus operatively ruling the Aquarian star system right now, is breaking up all of the institutions. Factually, we're talking about from the cosmic level, of all institutions that were created in the third dimensional realm, so they can't stand up anyway. So it's better that you know about the superconscious mind so that you can start using it right now and start, as you would say, saving yourselves. This is also why Drew Ali made mention of the higher planes of life and said, if I could just get you all thinking again, you save yourselves. Put your ego aside and start studying. Start researching for yourself. Don't accept what I'm saying. Make it your own.
Titi Asha asked me to share this. Her comment is that in Hindustan, they were burning straw, claiming there were dead bodies. There wasn't. The reporters or actors were given orders to say that. It's all symbolic. The 99-year lease is up. The Ottoman Empire is back, but they need you dumb and entertained. Yes. So you lose out on reclaiming your empire.
Yes. And this is why you will see that reflected with the IRS lease of 99 years being terminated a couple years ago, which is also why Donald Trump, by virtue of dealing with the bankruptcy of their private foreign de facto corporation, pulled the IRS of the Circle Church and Chancery into the defunct U.S. Treasury to cause them to issue more of their bottomry instruments that they've been using to devour nations into the what would call the currency, not monetary, currency system of estate trade that caused them to go bankrupt in order to help in the process of dismantling the Piscean Age priesthood who have been the demons of the planet. That's a fact. So you need to understand why I told you a couple of years ago that Donald Trump is assigned. I'm not supporting Donald Trump. I'm just telling you they're battling over your estate.
Mr. T.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what that's about.
We don't want to trigger him.
And it's not just him. He's the face. But it's more, it's sort of like a lot of truths will not be accepted from the people coming from the direct heirs. So therefore, some things will be done via the hybrids. And like Prophet Noble Ali said, I'm going to make the Europeans tell you the truth. Now that the middle class has